Serving it up to you live on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. I'm Bruce Nolan. That's Nate Geary. And this is Food for Thought, a show combining two of your three favorite F words. That's right, food and football. The third being the foxtrot, because we're very graceful here. I don't know what you were thinking. Get your mind out of the gutter. Before we get started, remember all the engagement buttons. Hit all of the engagement buttons. Like, subscribe, rate, review. Reminder, we are Super Chat live. YouTube Super Chats will get priority. We will not get to all questions, but we will get to all Super Chats. Mr. Geary, how are you this Friday evening, my friend?
I'm fantastic. I had a Nashville chicken sandwich with a cinnamon toast crunch milkshake. So I'm feeling pretty groggy right now, but I am ready for food for thought. And I'm ready for Ty Dunne.
I'm ready for Ty Dunne. And we're ready for spices. We're ready for a spicy episode. I think you having cinnamon and you having Nashville hot chicken was really, it was all part of the master plan to really
exactly
talk about spices. And that's what I want to get into right away, because I heard a take recently that was sent to me via you where somebody said cinnamon was the worst spice. And I got to be honest, I think I could come up with a couple that are worse than cinnamon.
Way worse.
But if you are in the comments section and you would like to chime in on what the worst spice is, you're welcome to. But I'm going to go ahead and start off. The worst spice for me is allspice. Now, allspice is used primarily in Jamaican food, Arabic food. You have sections of the globe that rely heavily on it, right? Caribbean jerk seasoning, heavily use of allspice. It's one of those things where it always sounds better in my head than it does actually when I'm eating jerk chicken. And I always think to myself, yeah, I'm totally down for this. Caribbean food, yeah, let's do it. But nope, it just doesn't happen that way. Side note, I had someone very wise tell me not too long ago that the difference between Caribbean and Caribbean is whether or not the word is used as a noun or an adjective.
Wow, really?
It's Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's a Caribbean jerk season. So if it's an adjective, it's Caribbean, and if it's a noun, it's Caribbean. I'll level with you. I have absolutely no idea if that's actually true, but it totally tracks logically in my head, and that's the way I've been doing it ever since. So for me, allspice, although it is actually in the berry family, believe it or not, allspice is actually in the berry family. It counts as a spice because spices can be berry-based. So knowing that, that's my least favorite of all the spices. Nate, you got a take?
Yeah, I've got a couple of takes. First one is cardamom. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
When have you experienced cardamom in your life?
In a latte, maybe a dessert here or there, like a baked good. And mostly they just keep saying on Great British Baking. And I just want to know, like, okay, well, what does that actually taste like? Because I've never been anything that it's ever been with. I've only tasted the thing that it's been with. So like vanilla cardamom is something that I've had in a latte. And I was like, okay, so it's like vanilla latte. Where's the cardamom? I really wanted to finally know what it tastes like. So I'm going to say it's cardamom, but I've got to say star anise is the worst spice of all time.
Oh, that was such a good take.
It is friggin' trash. It is made out to be this like superior spice, this, high level, high end flavor. But oh my gosh, it's terrible. It's right along the lines of like, it's not a spice, but it's definitely, what would you consider fennel?
Fennel's a seed.
Fennel's a seed?
Yeah, fennel's a seed.
Okay, well, they are all in that black licorice, weird, terrible tasting family to me, but star anise is by far, I can't tell you how many times I've had it or like the distinct taste that it has, other than to tell you it's not good.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. And I keep trying to find things that really work for each one of these spices. So I think, well, I don't like it in this, but maybe I'll like it in this. And let's be honest, nobody is interested in Cardamom and nobody is interested in star anise. I don't know who out there is all on board with these kind of spices and like, yes, that's exactly what I want. Now I can get started on herbs. Now this is the part where I'll level with you. I get a little bit hot ticky when it comes to herbs. There's a lot of herbs. I'm not a huge floral guy. So for me, I'm not a bay leaf guy. I'm not a thyme person. I do not like thyme essentially at all. I'm okay with rosemary in certain options.
Rosemary is fantastic.
There's certain types of bread that I think do really well with like an Asiago and a rosemary, but I'm much more of a spice guy than an herb guy. So the more you shift away from spice and the more you shift toward florally, seedy, things like fennel, things that are more plant-based, I'm not into it. Now, part of that's probably just because of upbringing, right? I wasn't born in a part of the world where these things are very common in your cooking, but I just could not get on board. Joe says he has the anti-cilantro gene. And ironically,
I'm also not a cilantro fan.
Not a huge cilantro guy myself. I kind of think it tastes like cleaning products sometimes. Not going to lie. Not a big fan.
So the other one too, you mentioned when we were talking about fennel. Somebody actually recently made fennel well, and I was sort of thrown off because I've never thought to enjoy it. But if we're talking about an herb, I think would we consider dill in the herb family?
Yes, absolutely.
They are with fennel.
Yeah, fennel is a root vegetable, like a carrot. So fennel is that. You see it oftentimes used with, they use seeds and things, but absolutely, if cilantro is in there and if fennel is in there, absolutely that's in there. Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, I'm still, I kind of want to go back to the beginning of this, which is where the cinnamon comes into play. And not only is cinnamon the best spice, Bruce, but
no.
Far and away the best spice.
Oh,
well,
no.
Let me hold on. Before I say that, I think you have to try to separate the spices into two particular categories. One is like a savory spice, and one is like something you would use in a sweet, nutmeg, cinnamon in this case, because I would say that on the sweet side, a dessert type spice, I am all in on cinnamon being the best. The only reason that I can't say cinnamon is the far and away best spice out of the whole lot of them is because I am full on addicted to crushed black peppercorn. Nate, fresh black pepper on everything. So my girlfriend the other night had a couple of friends over, and I said, "Do you want me to leave? Like, you're having your friends over." I was like, "No, I'll play Xbox." So I was just playing Xbox, whatever. But then I found out she was making homemade cacio e pepe, and I was like, "Hold on, sweetheart, I will be eating that, so you will be making extra of that." So I love cacio e pepe because it just is black pepper and it's cheese, and those are my favorite things with fresh pasta. But I got a little pushback because I kept putting more fresh ground pepper on it. She says, "Well, there's already tons of pepper," and I said, "Well, it's not enough." Crushed black peppercorn is by far and away the best spice. No questions asked. No competition there.
I am all in on that. I am all in on black peppercorn, freshly cracked. That's fantastic. I have a sneaky one for you, and it's cayenne. And I'll tell you why it's cayenne. I think that cayenne in small amounts is a game changer. I think the problem is people are a little heavy-handed with their cayenne. I'll give you a great example. Charles G says smoked paprika. A lot of people put paprika on their deviled eggs. I do not put paprika on the deviled eggs. I put cayenne pepper on the deviled eggs. Creates the same amount of visual appeal, but gives a little bit of something on the back end, especially if you make your deviled eggs with honey mustard instead of yellow mustard, and then you put a little bit of cayenne pepper.
It balances that out.
The balance, you get the vinegar of the mustard, you get the sweetness, you get the spicy. It's really complex. It really works.
How can I describe how I want to say? Is it a dry heat? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Like a drier. I don't know that makes sense, but that's the only way. Like, it doesn't really. I don't know. There's something about cayenne that doesn't really do it for me. That's why I go the smoked paprika route. It's not heat level, but it's for whatever reason, it's a it's a plainish hot. There's not a lot of depth of flavor to me to cayenne. So it's just kind of that balanced little layer of warm heat, not like crazy heat, but the flavor profile to me just doesn't do it for me on the cayenne.
I have a counter take. That's the point.
Do you get that? You get what I'm saying, though, right?
Yes, I do. You can get a little bit of that heat without completely taking over the flavor profile of whatever it is you're eating, which is exactly the reason that you would put it on something like a deviled egg, because you're still having a deviled egg. You're just getting a deviled egg with a little bit of heat. So with cayenne, you can take anything and you can say with a little heat, with like a habanero, for example, right? Then whatever it is you put it in, that's now habanero. Like that's it. That's what you did, right? And so with cayenne, you can get a little bit of heat on top of whatever you want. It's a complementary flavor, which I think spices are supposed to be complementary. I don't think spices are supposed to take over whatever it is that you're eating. And so for me, that's why I'm such an incredibly strong cayenne proponent.
We can end up creating, and maybe this is for next week, our first full segment going into spice level and the preference or your limits for spice. But as someone that can tell you right now what my limit is, habanero is my limit. I can't even really get to habanero. My girlfriend got me, I'm a big pickle guy. I love pickles. Really of anything, pickles and pickled items. She got me a Valentine's pickle bouquet. Had all sorts of, there's a place here locally called Barrel and Brine, and they do great, fantastic. It was very romantic. It had 2 pickled peppers. Okay. And they were small and they were almost like heart-shaped, which is why I'm sure they used them, but they turned out to be habaneros and I did not know. And it was a pickled habanero and it was small. And I looked at her and it looked like a sweet pepper. So I said to her, "This looks like a sweet pepper. It's a Valentine's Day gift. It's probably a sweet pepper. I'm good." She's like, "Yeah, I'm sure it's fine." So instead of doing the prudent thing, which is just taking a little, I bit the whole into the whole thing. It was the hottest. It was the hottest thing I'd ever put in my mouth. And I kind of felt like a baby because I told them, like, habaneros are spicy and they're usually, I know my limit is habanero, but this is like 5 on top of that. So, but again, we can turn that into other, because I know we have to get into our Patriots Bills. We're a meal segment here, but I think spicy threshold is a good topic for next week, Bruce.
I'm down for it. Let's keep it on. How much spicy can you take? And also, we need to go ahead and just start the takes right now that if you're not into things that make your eyes bleed, you are not less of a man. So we need to get that out of our cultural discussion as well.
Agreed.
But moving along, if Bills Pats was a meal, so you had it on a Monday night, it went down a certain way for you.
I've got it. I'm ready.
I'm ready. Go ahead.
I'm ready. I've been sort of waiting on this one all week. So Monday night's Bills Pats game, if it were a meal, it would be a well-done steak. The reason it would be a well-done steak is it's Monday Night Football and it's steak. It can be burnt steak, but it's still steak. I'll probably still eat it. It's sort of like pizza in that way. We're like, bad pizza's still pizza. Bad steak is still good steak or it's just steak in general. But a well-done steak, when you order it the right way at the table, you order your medium rare, but it comes to you as a well-done steak. There's a couple of things that start going in your mind. Okay, is this my fault? Whose fault is this? Is it the coaching? Is it the defense? Who do we want to blame? Was it embarrassing for the defense? Was it embarrassing for the offense? Is this on the coach? Is this on the waitress? Is this on the chef? Did he overcook it and not know it? So for me, this game, or I should say that Monday night game, is a lot like a well-done steak, because I'll still take it because the Bills are still in the hunt. They're still in the playoff hunt. Not only that, Bruce, but with a win, frankly, they don't need a win. They can lose on Sunday to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and still win first place in the division. So it's still steak. I'm probably going to eat it still because I don't really want to wait for them to cook another one while my entire rest of my party is eating their meal. So I'll settle. But next time, I'd like my steak done medium rare, and we'll in 3 weeks, we'll find out if we can get that steak right.
Now, I'm pretty upset because I had something that I thought was very clever that would help me attach 2 running bits that have been currently going on in Food for Thought. And then Andy Anderson comes into the comment sections and steals it. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill's Pats is the eggnog on Nate's desk. Before I go into that, everybody take a look into your video screen and see how the eggnog is showing up for Mr. Geary.
It's cracking, people. It's cracking.
It's literally trying to escape its confines at this moment. So this is the reason why Bill's Pats is the jar of eggnog. The further away you are removed from the purchase and potential consumption of the eggnog, the better it sounds. When the Buffalo Bills were getting ready to start this season, pretty much everybody thought they would sweep the Patriots. They swept them last year. They kind of figured that was going to work. The closer and closer and closer you got to Bills Patriots Monday Night Football, the worse and worse and worse it sounded. Then when it came time to consume it, you didn't really want to. And now after the time has gone, it's not really getting better. That, my friends, is the jug of eggnog on Nate's desk. And the reason why Bills Patriots is that. Moving along. Looking for schematically things against the Buccaneers. We're all going to keep our eyes on things. The Buccaneers are the defending Super Bowl champions for a reason. They are a good team for a reason. They were, ironically enough, at one point in 2020, 7-5. But we have a hard time imagining that this team beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at this time would be anything less than an upset. So tell me, what are you looking for schematically against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Nate? What are you keeping your eye on?
I think a lot of this lack of belief, Bruce, comes from lack of trust. This is a Bills team that has lost 3 of their last 7 games. They have not won back-to-back games since September. So I think what this comes down to, Bruce, is there's just a lack of trust right now with how this team is built and how they're winning football games. They were beating the teams they should beat, but there's a couple of games on the schedule now that they should have won and they didn't. This is a team right now that's 0-4 in one-score games compared to 5-1 last year. So this game schematically is going to come down to whether or not the Bills can get themselves into a shootout. And I was listening this morning to Joe DiBiase and Sal Capaccio on the Extra Point Show, and they were talking, and Joe had mentioned, like, if the Bills get into a shootout, that's where I trust them. That's like, this is a good matchup for the Bills because the secondary is not good. We know that Richard Sherman is back in the lineup, except he's being moved and playing safety for the first time in his career against this Bills offense that is struggling. We know that they're the number 1 run defense in all of football, and they've been for the last 2 years. Vita Vea is the best one tech probably right now in football. Their defensive line is mean, it's physical, and it's like the Bills, they can rotate 7, 8, 9 guys and not really miss a beat. So that defensive line trying to run the ball, quote unquote, establish the run is going to be even harder this week against a really damn good defensive line from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But even more so, Bruce, it's this idea that this is still a team you can trust in a shootout. And I just don't know there's any evidence that this offense is trustworthy in a situation, even against inferior defensive backfields like we're going to see on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because this is the same offense that could not throw the football on a 2-12 or whatever their 2-10 Jacksonville Jaguars team. So I think for me, I trust last year's Bills offense to do their thing against this pass defense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not sure I trust that this 2021 version of this passing offense to get in a shootout and beat Tom Brady, who right now is the league's MVP.
For me, I'm thinking about the Buffalo Bills and their obsession with two-dimensional offenses. I'm thinking about the Buffalo Bills and their obsession with being physical at the line of scrimmage. I want to know how far you're willing to take this. That's what I want to know for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
How far are you willing to take this concept that you want to be physical? Because are you going to try and out-physical Vita Vea and the Buccaneers defensive line? Like, are you so obsessed with the idea of what you want to be that you're going to steer away from the thing that you are? Or are you going to try and prove a point that you can go in there and punch Vita Vea in the mouth? Because
good luck. Did you see him get his teeth knocked out? That guy doesn't care.
Yeah, he was laughing about it.
Yeah. That's a psychopath. You're not out physicaling that guy.
No, he looked like he had actually been to the dentist and was still on the anesthetic. He was at the happy gas, and he was walking around going, "This is good. This is the good stuff. This is big with the stuff in the face and things." So that's what I want to know. I want to know if your commitment to your offensive identity and what it is you think you would like to be is so strong that you are willing to do something that's probably not going to work. And if it doesn't work, if you come out and you run the ball, let's go 45% of the time in the first quarter, and you get nowhere with it, how committed are you to that? Are you going to adjust, or are you going to keep going? No. The physicality is more important. The concept is more important than the thing that actually works. I want to know how committed they are. So for me, that's what I'm keeping my eye on. But right now, what I'm keeping my eye on is Mr. Tyler Dunne. And I'm keeping my eye on him because he's right here with us, joining us on the Genesee Brewing Company hotline. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have Mr. Dunne with us. Ty, how you doing, man?
Great to be here, fellas. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a few weeks in the works. I've been a little bit of a prima donna, confirming this. Nate's been super generous to keep coming back to me, so I'm glad we could make this happen. Appreciate you having me.
Hey, listen, coming from two prima donnas, this is a good trio. So there's no hard feelings there, brother. So Ty, part of the reason that we wanted and we're excited to have you on, first of all, it's your debut, so congratulations, welcome to Food for Thought. I usually don't do this, but you just hopped on late, so we've been running this social experiment here, Tyler, which is. I tried eggnog and I didn't like it. So what I did was, instead of, doing the normal thing, which is throw it away, I've been conducting an experiment on it. And this is how the eggnog, which has been sitting on my desk for 4 weeks, this is what it looks like. Ooh. And that's the that's the condition of it. So I wanted you to know what this show's all about, which is about really obscure, just mostly bad takes about food and football. So I'm hoping that you fit in, because you and I both have female counterparts that are known for their food ability and their ability to make and have takes on the food. We are just known as the eaters, if you could tell.
Oh yeah, I'm right there with you, man. 2 kids, you try to work out, but it really doesn't do much. It does nothing. Yeah. We're very lucky, right? Like they want to cook, they want to go out to eat. We hit the jackpot. I'm pretty sure, Nate. So yeah, I always joke with Gina, like her Instagram is Feed Me Buffalo, and then whenever I try to make something like a grilled cheese or throw something on the grill, I'll take a picture of it and call it Feed Me Shituffalo. So it's it's not the best, it's edible usually.
Yeah, right.
It's usually leftovers. I love just garbage plating it. Just throw a bunch of crap together, douse some Frank's red hot sauce in there, and call it a day. But yeah, we're very lucky.
Well, even the people in the comment section know who they have with us. The right. King of shopping cart etiquette is here.
Holding
for those of you who do not know,
people in power accountable.
Absolutely. For those of you who do not know, Tyler Dunne is famous for his belief that whether or not you return your shopping cart to the shopping cart corral in the parking lot is the litmus test for whether or not you are a moral, upstanding human being. Did I do a good job there?
I think you nailed it. It says everything you need to know about somebody. I don't care if you're a senior citizen. You know what I mean? You had the energy to go shopping in that Wegmans, right? In that Lowe's, in that Home Depot. You went row to row. You did what you had to do. It takes not even a minute, not even 30 seconds to push the cart into the corral. It says everything you need to know about somebody, man, woman. It doesn't matter where you come from, right?
All walks of life, that's right.
All walks of life. So we got to call them out. I try to catch them in the act if I can. I spoke it up a couple times and just kind of got a look. Didn't really get much of a reaction. So if we can just spread the awareness, I guess that's all we can do, right, fellas?
Especially this weekend, Tyler. The wind's supposed to be crazy tomorrow. I don't want any dings, nicks in my vehicle for you being lazy.
Completely. That's what it comes down to, right? There is damage done if you don't do this right.
People
so
helping people.
You know everything you need to know about a human being by that, what they do with their shopping cart. How they play basketball is a huge tell. Are you selfish? Are you diving on the floor?
Taking charges.
Right. Are you taking charges? Are you playing defense? How competitive are you? And then how you treat a waiter or a waitress. Those are the three things, right? Are you an asshole or are you kind?
What you're saying is if I am at a job interview or if I am going on a date for some reason and I would like to ascertain the fitness of this human being, what I should do is take them to the grocery store first off, and then take them out to dinner, but order basically nothing because obviously, you don't want to spend too much if you don't know if they're a good person yet or not. So I'm just going to see how they behave in these particular circumstances, and then I'll know whether or not they're a good person. Oh, and then pick up basketball with them. It sounds like a wonderful date.
Yeah, it sounds like
that's the big one.
We have to do 3 things today to determine whether or not I'm going to have a second date with you. And we're going to start by going to the Hamburg playground, and we're going to go play pickup basketball in December. I need to know your character.
You know what? I should have done that on the first date with my wife. Huge mistake. I got lucky, because she's a goddess, and I got lucky. But I didn't know if I wouldn't have done these 3 things, I could have been in trouble.
Miss Nolan is definitely diving in the front row, diving into somebody's nachos to save the ball. 100%.
Unquestionably. Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about this. We want to talk a little bit about the thing that we were just discussing before you came on, and that was the Bills and identity. Because something has been coming along this year when it comes to the Buffalo Bills. You saw it with the Titans. You saw it a little bit with the Jaguars. You saw it with the Colts. You saw it with the most recent game against the New England Patriots. And that is this idea, this concept, this narrative that is starting to take form that the Bills struggle with physicality, the idea that the Bills might be front runners. They don't like getting punched in the mouth. Obviously, these narratives start to form because every team is a little bit different. Every year, a team has its own storyline and its own character arc, like a 10-episode season. It starts at the beginning and you don't really know where they're going. And then halfway through, you're like, okay, I think I got a good idea, but I hope it wraps up well. And then you get to the end and you're like, okay, I saw the character arc. Well, now we're in the middle of a character arc for the Buffalo Bills. And I got to ask you, this narrative that's starting around, where do you fall in this? Being somebody who's part of the fabric of the community, but also being someone who has covered many, many, many other teams, right? Good teams in regards to specifically the Green Bay Packers teams that were very, very, very good. You've seen enough other teams close up and personal to be able to understand what a physical team looks like, what a soft team looks like, what a front runner team looks like. Where do you fall on what the Buffalo Bills team is in 2021?
I loved your breakdown and the analogy of a TV show. It's so true. I feel like we're in season 6 or 7 of Dexter. Like it really peaked with the Trinity Killer. And now it's just like, what is going on? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a soft football team. I wrote it after that Colts game. I mean, that's really all I kind of had to see. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to be a finesse team, to be a front running team. That's what they were at this point last season. They're blowing teams out by 20, 30 points. I mean, just blowing them out of the water, blowing New England out, San Francisco out, doing whatever they wanted to do offensively. Josh Allen was facing man defense like all the time and just tore it up. They were blitzing him and he tore that up. And yeah, I think if you're a front runner, good things just tend to happen. I really believe in momentum. I know that's a whole other discussion, but they had the momentum and they were just crushing teams. They didn't really get punched in the mouth. Until when they did in the AFC Championship game, they kind of freaked. They kind of lost their composure. By the end of the game, they get into fights with the Chiefs. And I think this season, schematically, there's that discussion where, these teams kind of reacted. They saw that the NFL was going to this improvisational quarterback, this backyard game, and the Bills' calculation was to beat Patrick Mahomes, to play that game, to go lighter, softer. The DBs aren't what they used to be. The linebackers are built a certain way. They paid Matt Milano a lot of money. Offensive line, you poured more money into that, but they're not road graders. They let a road grader and Wyatt Teller leave the building. So it seemed to be that that was the way the NFL was going. And then the smart offensive minds decided, nope, we're just going to bludgeon you to death with a running game. We're just going to send Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, New England with Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris at you and win like it's 1968. And the Bills aren't prepared for that game. They just aren't. They can't play that game. They can't pretend to be somebody they're not. So yeah, they're a soft kind of football team in the physicality department, but I think in the temperament department, where if the getting's good, they'll dance all over your grave, and that's awesome. It's fun. I've done these stories. I've sat down with Deion Dawkins at where did we? We got pizza downtown Buffalo, and you talk to these guys in the Isaiah McKenzie show that we do. It's a fun team, right? They feed off of that fun. They feed off of that momentum. But I don't know if they're prepared to play this kind of football game right now. It doesn't seem like it. It might be too late to really change who they are. If they're going to get out of this, they're going to have to throw their way out of it. They're going to have to try to force teams to play that shootout. And I don't know if you can do that right now.
Ty, I think about this offense as sort of the epicenter of the identity crisis. And the one thing that you can say about Brian Daboll, Josh Allen, about their offense in 2020 was their ability to adapt. Okay, right? What is it? The Ravens and the cover zero blitz that just befuddled that offense. Okay, well, they figured it out. They moved on. They pivoted, and they found a way to beat it and be successful against it. The Dolphins don't even try to do it against them anymore because they're too scared. The man coverage thing, right? Like early on, it was man coverage and pressure against Josh Allen. Those were the things that was the recipe on him. And then a year later, man coverage and pressure. Those are Josh Allen. Josh Allen's the top rated quarterback in passer rating and completion percentage in both of those categories. So why is it that we're in week 14 or whatever we're in here, week 13, and we're saying to ourselves that it feels like, Ty, this is how I guess I would try to equate what I'm seeing from the Bills. Is they're a poker player that was in on a big hand and they lost 3/4 of their pot. And what they've decided to do now is, I just want to, I want to win back. I want to just win small hands here. And I want to just stick around and I want to play because I don't want to leave this table and I don't want to go back to my Vegas hotel room. It's only midnight. I was supposed to play before. So like, that's kind of where this offense is. And I'm wondering, Ty, like, is there a pivot left in this team? And is it as simple as going back to some of the things that worked really well for them last year, Ty? Because it feels like, I don't like to use the word like lazy, but it feels like from the play calling to the execution, there just isn't. Maybe the right word is magic. Maybe that's the right word. That magic that they had in 2020, it just doesn't appear to be there right now.
I know, you're right. It doesn't. I think, it is. There is a lot of X's and O's involved. Like, the sitting back with the two deep safeties. I know that horse has been beaten dead.
Yep.
Constantly every week, but there's a reason for that. It's true. Like, teams are sitting back.
Works.
And right, they're in zone. They're forcing Josh Allen just to think a little bit more. The line isn't that great, so he's under a little bit more pressure. And he did miss a couple throws at the end of the game. Look, Josh Allen was incredible, I thought, in that win. Like, you got to give him credit. Like, he once when they did give him a chance to throw it, he made throws. He just couldn't catch the ball. But that last drive, Jim Monis made a great point in our podcast. Like, you got to hit that back shoulder throw. I know it's not easy, but that's why you're paid, unlike any quarterback in the game next to Patrick Mahomes, to make that play. So, yeah, I think that play just hasn't been there. When the opportunity does show up and you get that chance, he misses that throw, or he's under just enough pressure where he doesn't see Diggs, the play before across the middle. So they're just off. But I kind of get frustrated when I hear a lot of fans just say, well, they only gave up 14 points. They only gave up 200 whatever yards. If you take away that one long touchdown run by Damian Harris, get out of here with it's not the game.
Play. Yeah.
Let's just take away wide right, and they'd be Super Bowl champs.
That'd be good.
Just take that away. Take away that Derrick Henry run, the Jonathan Taylor run. It happened. Yeah. And anybody who watched that game with the 50-mile-per-hour gale force winds knew it was a different kind of game. And the game isn't played on an Excel spreadsheet where the Patriots are telling you, we are going to run the ball every play right at you with power, and you can't stop us. And they couldn't stop them. 4 yards at a time, 5 yards at a time. They controlled the line of scrimmage, and there is something to the psychology of football, and it's played by human beings. And if you couldn't stop this team when you knew it was coming, that's demoralizing. And that's why I thought it was embarrassing.
I got a question for you about that physicality. I got a question for you about the embarrassment. You assume for a second that the Bills are not going to bring in a street free agent who's going to change the physical culture of this team. Let's just go ahead and do that right off the bat. So if you wanted to become something you're not, if you wanted to be able to tap into some of that physicality, I bring this up because of what Richard Rush said in the comments, that Brown and Doyle are nasty blockers. I agree with that. Doyle's not ready to play in the NFL right now. He wasn't ready in the preseason. He's not ready now. He may look on paper to be a similar athlete to Spencer Brown. In movement, he is a very different athlete than Spencer Brown. But if you look at the Bills' current roster and you think, okay, this guy's going to have to set the tone on physicality. A lot of names don't pop up for you. John Feliciano pops up for you, but who knows when he's going to be back and activated from IR. When you look at this Bills team and you say, okay, this guy's going to set the tone from a physicality standpoint. Spencer Brown is a rookie right tackle, maybe not in the right position to be able to set the tone from a physicality standpoint. Where do you go? Where do you look to this team and go, okay, this guy is going to set the tone. This guy's going to bring the energy. This guy's going to show everybody that we're not going to be messed with. This guy's going to show everybody that we can punch back. Who's it going to be?
It's a fantastic looking question. I think if, even last season, when you go 15-4 and you're blowing these teams out, your offensive line, they're moving backwards pretty much the whole game. They didn't run the ball a lot last season. Their best runner was Josh Allen most of the time. So it's so embedded into the fabric of the team and the way these linemen think and move and play. Like, I don't think it's in their DNA to all of a sudden just start kicking ass. And that's no knock. I don't even think these are like bad players across the board. Like, they're really good, not really good. They've proven to be competent pass blockers for the most part back to last season. They're not road graders. And the scheme isn't a Greg Roman scheme. It's not this high-tech zone power mix where you're going to be able to confuse teams at the line of scrimmage and use Josh Allen and do all these creative things like the Ravens do. Brian Daboll, he's a great offensive coordinator. Like I said today, shudder to think if David Culley and Rick Dennison are leading your offense. Throw Brian Daboll under the bus all you want, Sean McDermott, which was crazy. I was shocked that he went to that length after the game. It could be a lot worse. Brian Daboll is a very good coordinator, but he isn't a coordinator that is going to run the ball. And the personnel isn't as such to run the ball. I think it's too late to just find a player or a play or something magical and just turn into this team that can play that kind of game. They're going to have to try to bait teams into their kind of game in Foxborough, try to turn that into a shootout. Now, Tampa Bay, it could be a good matchup, right? Their secondary is not any good. Maybe it is a shootout with Tom Brady. It very well could be, but I don't know. I feel like there's still a lot of teams in the AFC that are going to be a problem for Buffalo. And if you do lose this game to Tampa Bay, the season's pretty much lost, right? It's pretty much a must win.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Bruce. No,
when you look at Brian Daboll and you look at Brian Daboll and you say, okay, well, he's not a coordinator who's going to run the ball significantly. The ironic thing about this discussion is that we get so tied up in narratives now that we forget what the narratives were just recently. And with Brian Daboll, when he came in as the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, the book on Brian Daboll was he had never coordinated a top passing offense ever. He had always been a guy who was, the Jamal Charles year, the Peyton Hillis year, all of these big rushing years happened with Brian Daboll. And then you go back and say, okay, one of the people who was detracting from Brian Daboll would say, oh, he's not somebody you can trust to develop a passing offense. You go, look at his quarterbacks. Matt Castle was the best quarterback he ever had. I'm sorry, Brady Quinn, if you're an avid listener to this show. But the fact of the matter is that Brian Daboll built strong rushing offenses before he got here because that's the question. So I want to know this. Is this a scenario where Brian Daboll is just playing the cards he's been dealt at this point? Like, because it's not like he's incapable of having a significant rushing offense. We know that's not the case. But at the same time, can you have both? That's my question. Can you have both? If you want to be a physical, downhill rushing team, if you say, you know what, Sean McDermott, you're right. We want to be two-dimensional. You know what, Sean McDermott, you're right. We want to make sure we have the threat of the run of the ball. Because Brian Daboll had one half of it years and years ago, and now he's got the other half of it with Buffalo. But it's so rare to see both.
Yeah.
So my question is, can you do it without pulling off the other one? And even if you could, should you?
That is a great question. And yes, I think you can. To bring it back to what you brought up earlier with the Green Bay Packers. So I covered that team living out in Wisconsin from 2010 to 2015. And you saw that like this too deep shell look, it's not new. Like after the Packers went 15-1 and Aaron Rodgers set the NFL record for passer rating, and they had all those receivers on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I mean, what? You had Driver, Jennings, Finley, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb. I mean, they had weapons all over the place. It was insane. That they went kaput in the playoffs against the Giants. And the next year, teams really sat back with those two safeties. They dared the Packers to run the football. They couldn't do it. James Starks was, local kid, great player, but hurt a lot. Ryan Grant wasn't the same. I think they drafted Alex Green the year before. He was okay, but teams were begging them to run. They couldn't really run. So they went, I want to say 11-5, flamed out. Then they go out and they draft Eddie Lacy. And he is a very large human being who, when he wasn't 265 pounds eating his way out of the NFL, there was a short window of time there for 2 years where he did bludgeon teams. Yep. And they were in the NFC Championship game. And if Brandon Bostic doesn't botch that onside return, if 18 things in a row don't go wrong, if any one of those things go right, they're in the Super Bowl. Maybe they're beating Tom Brady because they did respond, because they had this prolific passing game. Aaron Rodgers was doing whatever he wanted to in 2011, a lot like Josh Allen in 2020, but they were able to do both. They went to Eddie Lacy. Now, fast forward to this year, I know Aaron Rodgers is having a very good season for his age, unbelievable. A.J. Dillon, right? They give Brian Gutekunst credit. He drafts 250-pound dude with 8% body fat with thighs like tree trunks, and that is really what your offense can run through this time of year.
Spent a lot of money on Aaron Jones, though, and you got A.J. Dillon. But that's trust me, when that's a separate conversation. I want to ask you one more, and then I kind of want you to tell people a little bit too, Ty, about the piece you just did about Wyatt Teller, because it was fantastic. But before you promo that, this was kind of the question for this podcast, which was, I think we both believe there has been a fundamental shift in how Sean McDermott is managing football games. Is it as simple as just saying he believes in his defense more now than he did last year? And that's a cause for a lot of more, because defense equals conservative, offense equals aggressive. And I guess that maybe shouldn't always be looked like that, but I think that's how this is being perceived.
I think Sean McDermott is a defensive-minded coach, obviously, that just thinks, give me whoever quarterback, get me to 14 points, I'll take care of the rest. I think that's his mindset. Let's not forget that he trotted Nathan Peterman out as his day one starter after maybe the worst game a quarterback's ever had. The fact that he was on the roster is mind-blowing, let alone starting the next season and then doing the same thing. I don't know how intelligent he is when it comes to offensive football. It's just not his thing. I think he just wants to manage a game, right? Like you said, kick some field goals, get a touchdown here or there. Let me deal with the rest. I'll keep them out of the end zone. We'll win in the red zone. We'll force a couple turnovers. We'll see how far that takes the Bills. I mean, that's why I'm pretty critical. I don't see them getting over the hump with that kind of coach, that kind of coaching. And it's a weird balance, right? I mean, that's why I like Bruce's question, because you can do both. Mm-hmm. You can be this throw-it-around team that also is able to run the ball, but they don't have that A.J. Dillon on the roster. They don't have nasty linemen on the roster like Green Bay does. They don't have that switch. And that, give Aaron Rodgers credit to. I'm sure he's doing stuff at the line of scrimmage to react to what the defense is doing. But, yeah, I don't know about Sean McDermott. And, it's weird. It's like an identity crisis with the managing of games. Like kicking that field goal against the Colts, it's windy, it's crappy out, you can't stop a nosebleed, and you kick that field goal. Like, what's that going to give you? I don't really know. And it was strange. I know a lot was made in that press conference out of, Jerry Sullivan, who's, speaking of pickup basketball, we used to play 5-6 years ago. He's got a 3-pointer, man.
Yes,
believe it or not,
does.
Sully.
Uncle Jerry can shoot. He's also a decent golfer. Don't let his geriatric his whole shticks fool you at all. He's an athlete.
But it's like, you would have thought that he was Tremaine Edmonds missing the tackle on the Damian Harris touchdown, but by the reaction of a lot of I couldn't believe, like, okay, again, he's a columnist. He has said his job is to provoke. That's his thing. But like, it was a fair question. Like, it was a follow-up question to Adam Bonini, who they're talking about this run defense. It's historic. We haven't seen a team win throwing the ball 3 times since 1968, whatever it was. And so, yeah, I mean, I get it if Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are upset. Look, it's right out of the game. You don't want to be talked to like that, whatever.
Yeah.
But to be that incredulous, and really Sean McDermott did the same thing and kind of blamed the offense, was pretty interesting to basically say, what do we do? We held them to 14 points. And
yeah,
they kind of, nobody's really talking about that out of the reaction. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
The other thing too is there was a national media conversation about a Sean McDermott quote, and I can't imagine. I imagine the next time that Sean McDermott has to talk post game, he will say less than nothing now, because now he's had his words weaponized against him, and Sean McDermott is the guy that wants to be known as the guy that says nothing. And the fact that Belichick quote got talked about the way that it did after the game, I think more than likely was taken out of context in how he intended to say it. But it's how it sounded. I mean, it sounded like he was saying, like, listen, this isn't Big Bad Bill. Like, that's how it did kind of come off. So I will say that for Sean.
I think Matt Fairburn asked a fantastic question, and he got a good answer. He got a rare human answer out of Sean McDermott.
We will, by the way, Ty, have Matthew Fairburn on this show for the Bills-Pats next matchup, and that'll be one of the things I ask him about. But, like, Matthew Fairburn is a Buffalo beat veteran. That guy knows exactly which part of the apple not to bite into. You know what I mean?
I mean, and it's true. Like, I think everybody, I was just talking to Matt about this. We got a couple beers earlier. Great catching up with him. I'm biased. He's one of my best friends, but he noted, like, in that Seth Wickersham book that everybody should read on the Patriots.
Yes, they should.
A big chunk of that, I mean, you read it, is the psychology. I mean, Bill Belichick has gotten into coaches' heads. There are specific examples of that. You see it. Like, it's active coaching on his part. He knows what he's doing. And it just seemed like that night he was in Sean McDermott's head. Sean McDermott, so uncharacteristically, losing his damn mind on the sideline, going ballistic. I mean, it was different. We hadn't seen that. And the decisions he was making were different. The way he talked up to the game was Belichick-esque, effusive with his praise, like Belichick is with his gamesmanship. I think he does kind of want to be this mini Belichick, like a lot of other guys who have tried to take him down before were too.
And listen, if you don't think Belichick had some payback on his mind from last year, you're sort of. I'm sure he missed the play. Oh yes, throwing the phone. Oh yeah. All right, listen, Ty. We could talk forever. Tell us a little bit about this Wide Teller piece that you just came out with. What else you got working on, so the people listening can mark their calendars appropriately.
Appreciate the opportunity, fellas. And if you want to keep going, I got time here because there's still a little bit of beer left in this one. But
beer o'clock.
Speaking of, I think kind of back to that press conference too. The Bills aren't. It's not exclusive to the Bills. This is an NFL thing where the locker rooms are closed. They're not letting this COVID crisis go to waste as a league. They don't want us in there talking to these guys, building relationships, figuring out why, what went wrong after a loss. And I think the fans might look at that and be like, yeah, screw the media. We don't need that. We don't care. Well, you're the ones pouring millions of dollars into this product. This is about you. You're sitting out in those 50-mile-per-hour winds. The NFL does not exist without the fans. They deserve to have a peek behind the curtain on what the hell's going on with the team, the inner workings of a team, whether that kind of story, or a personality profile, getting to know a player beyond a 10-minute press conference where things are rehearsed and often cliched. So honestly, that's a big reason I launched Go Long a year ago, just to kind of zig where the NFL is kind of zagging and just be different. Covered the NFL for 12 years now, whatever it is, have relationships all over the place. I want to just get to know these guys on a different level. So that was the Wyatt Teller story. We just hung out right at his house in Westlake, Ohio, had a couple beers. He got his finest whiskey out, Pappy, very expensive. I don't know why he wasted it on me. And just bullshitted. Just told stories. I think he's everything we love about football. Like, he is this return to physicality and violence and taking people out. I think we're subconsciously drawn to a Wyatt Teller, right? Because the NFL is legislating violence out of the backfield because you can't touch the quarterback, out of the secondary, you can't hit receivers. But in the trenches, it's still football. He can still hit, and Wyatt Teller's pancaking people every week. So that was kind of the impetus for the story. We talked about how he got to where he is and being this viral sensation on Sundays. And obviously Buffalo is a big part of it. The Bills drafted him. The Bills had him. He's exactly what they need right now. And They let him walk out the door. So we got into that as well. And he broke a kid's sternum when he was 4 years old in his first practice. And then he broke another kid's sternum in high school. So those were just insane stories that you'll read too.
Well, I too have broken many sternums in my day. I just thought I just got to one up somebody. Holy cow! You got the Godfather of violence over here.
That's almost more synonymous than MacGruber stealing throats. Just ripping throats off. That's even a little bit more. That's a little bit more, I think, violent, to be honest.
He said it's not like he said it's not like he's like literally in your chest, grabbing your heart out, but you hear a pop. It's like a. It is a visible, and the one kid's eyes just rolled back in his head, and it went from to get help, he needs help. I can't imagine, that.
No. There was an offensive lineman in the NFL who knew the 5-point palm exploding heart maneuver, then I would guess it was Wyatt Teller. Anybody out there with a Kill Bill reference, I'm down for it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here on Friday night and joining us while we had a discussion with Mr. Tyler Dunne. Tyler, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social media and say hello to everybody.
I appreciate everybody reading, listening. Honestly, Buffalo really makes Go Long possible. This is home. This will always be home. We ain't going anywhere. We know where our bread is buttered, so we will definitely keep the Bills content churning. But golongtd.com is the site. You can sign up to the free email newsletter. So a lot of stories are for free, or you can subscribe. Get all the exclusive stuff. We had Eric Wood on a happy hour throwing some beers back with subscribers. Steve Tasker is going to be on next week, hopefully. So a good time to become a subscriber, I think. And on Twitter, if you want to hear some, terrible NBA or shopping cart or Jim Croce takes, at Ty Dunne.
Ty, thanks so much for being here, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Thank you, guys. Anytime, man. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you, brother.
Talk to you soon. Mr. Tyler Dunne from golong.com. As a reminder, Mr. Tyler Dunne and all of our guests are brought to you on the Genesee Brewing Company hotline. Nate, I thought that was a good time.
Yes,
that was a good time. I think that one of the things that is interesting about having a discussion with Tyler is that he is a national media member, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who is invested in the Buffalo market. He's got 1 foot in the market and 1 foot out of the market. And so because of it, he can say things that other people aren't going to say. And he approaches it from a different angle than other people approach it. And I think that whether you agree or disagree with the specific opinions, I think it's valuable to see them and know where they come from. I think it's valuable to know what Tyler's background is. I think it's valuable to know the relationships that he's got with Jim Monos, for example, right? He has understandings with Jim and with Doug Whaley and with previous Bills members of the front office. And so he's got this weird hybrid scenario that no one else is in, the specific scenario that Ty Dunne is in. Nobody. He's got this halfway in, halfway out. He's like Blade. Ty Dunne is like Blade. If any of you don't remember, Blade was a vampire, but he was a daywalker. He could walk during the day and not be damaged by the sun's ultraviolet radiation. So basically, Tyler Dunne is the daywalker. He's Blade. And so because of it, it becomes a more interesting conversation than you're going to get from a pure national media member. And it becomes a different conversation than you're going to get from someone who's on the Buffalo beat. It's this weird hybrid. I don't know if you feel like that too, Nate, but
totally.
It's
I've always
weird.
felt that way.
And so because of it, it's hard to describe really, but whether or not you are nodding your head to Tyler or you're shaking your head to Tyler, you're going to hear something that is delivered from a different angle than anybody else you're going to listen to. So I value that quite a bit. We are going to move on because we don't have a lot of time, and we've got 2 emails we want to make sure we get to. The first one is about diner burgers. For those of you who were not on this episode last week, I specifically said that when I go to a diner, I typically get a burger. And I had an email from Christopher Nixon who was telling me the reason why you shouldn't get a burger at a diner.
Should not.
And he said, the reason, yes, shouldn't. He said, the reason you don't get a burger at a diner is you can get a burger anywhere. When you go to a diner, you get something you can only get at a diner. When you go to a seafood restaurant, you get seafood.
A good point.
There's likely a burger somewhere on the seafood restaurant menu.
I actually respect
on
that
a
point a
steakhouse.
lot.
But you don't order the burger at the steakhouse, the seafood place, or the diner. You get a burger at a burger joint or at a shitty chain restaurant where they can't do anything else right because the burger is hard to mess up. That was the email from Christopher. Verbatim.
Love that.
So this is my response to Christopher. Diners are, by their very nature, things with massively broad menus. They always are. That's one of the things that makes them a diner. You don't go to a diner and have 6 things on the menu. That's not a thing. You go to a diner and they hand you this Cheesecake Factory-esque novel that it becomes your menu, and you basically need to bust out your reading glasses and maybe smoke a cigar while you're reading it. And because of that, I don't think there is something that is only you can get at a diner. What types of things? And I would listen, if a diner was a specialty restaurant, okay? If I was going to a diner and it was a specialty restaurant, you could only get that at a diner, then sure, I would buy that. And I would agree with your take. However, by very nature, diners are jacks of all trades. They're supposed to be the jack of all trades, master of none. They're supposed to be that. That's what they're designed to be. So as such, this whole, you get it, you don't get a burger there because you get a burger at specialty places and you get diner specialties. There are no diner specialties. Diners do eggs and they do breakfast and they do burgers and they do meatloaf. Listen, their meatloaf isn't as good as Mrs. Nolan's. That's not happening. So what? I can't get the meatloaf then? So I'm completely out on the response because I don't think diners are specialty places. Now, I'm not even going to give Nate an opportunity to respond to that because it was really directly at me, because I want to move on to the next take, and it's from JR. JR says, "Dear Bruce and Nate, I wanted to give some food for thought to the Bills Mafia family. When I was in my early 20s, there was an all-night diner that my friends and I would frequent. And yes, you absolutely get a burger at a diner. JR, your check's in the mail. The food was average
Your royalties
at best.
are in the mail.
That's right. The food was average at best, but that's not why it was a good memory for me. It was staying up late, hanging out with my buddies. The same can be said about our team, particularly this season. I was recently diagnosed with colon cancer and stage 4. I really would like to see my team I've watched my whole life win a Super Bowl before I die. But it's not the meal, aka the Super Bowl. It's the fun we've had as Bills Mafia family together. We win together, we lose together. I bring up my ailment to make a point. There are several members of our family that did not get to see our team be transformed into what it is today. Poncho did not get to see the playoffs last year. But when they were alive, it was the memories they had with their Bills Mafia family. Let us enjoy this season, whatever the outcome may be. The food, the time we spend together, that's the best food that the rest of the NFL fan bases do not have. Cheers." JR is right.
To that.
The reason why we do food for thought, right, is not just because we love to talk about spices and cinnamon, stick our pinkies out and talk about spices that are a little bit rarer and think, well, gosh, look at Bruce, Nate, they're hoity-toity out here with their crazy spices. But really, it's about the idea that the reason why we love food as a culture is because it brings people together. That's why we love it. And the reason why we're supposed to love sports is because it brings people together.
The unifier.
It's hilarious. I mentioned this years and years ago on a different podcast, but the thing that makes sports fascinating is that sometimes it's all you need. And what I mean by that is in that brief moment when you're in the stadium with somebody, I'm not, mind you, I don't go to games, but historically, if you were in a stadium with someone in a hypothetical world where Bruce went to a stadium, the guy sitting next to you who's chugging the beer and cheers with you and gives you the high five after the touchdown, you don't know a darn thing about that guy.
Don't know him.
You don't know if he's aligned with you on anything at all. Religion, politics. You don't know where he's come from. You don't know what he's been through. But in that moment, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The fact that you love the Bills and they love the Bills, that's all that you need for you to have a best friend in that guy for the next 3 hours. That's what's supposed to be special about football. And somewhere along the line, we lose that. Somewhere along the line, we get so obsessed with being right and getting our takes correct and being right on the X's and O's and all this stuff that we just completely forgot the reason we fell in love with it together was somebody you fell in love with it with. It was your father or your grandfather or your uncle or your spouse. You fell in love with the game with somebody. That's the point. And that's the same thing that food does for people. It brings them together. And football's supposed to bring them together. We almost named this podcast Foodball. I was inches away from naming this podcast.
It was close.
Foodball.
It was close.
It was close. Foodball was almost there. But I thought, yeah, I was going to have to spell it too many times. It was just going to be a problem. It's a little bit like naming a kid something that's not phonetic and knowing that that kid's going to have to explain and spell their name 327 million times over the course of their life. It's a little bit like that with foodball. And so for me, when I read JR's take and I read JR's email, that's what I thought, is that food and football are supposed to bring us together. And that's why we do Food for Thought. So,
damn
Nate,
straight.
Do you have any comments, concerns? I know I just completely went off the deep end there.
No,
I got up on my soapbox and I just started pontificating wildly. I'm sorry about that.
Isn't that what the podcast is for? Come on.
For me to pontificate? No, I have a different show for that. And so do you. You have Sports Talk Saturday to pontificate. I have the Bruce exclusive to pontificate. And then this is the Venn diagram overlap. That's Food for Thought.
Of a bunch of nonsense coming together to sound cohesive, which is what, yeah, right. I mean, that is what this show is for. No, listen, you know, I think this year I started the season on my show sort of saying, okay, this was the Super Bowl ride this year. That was what we were all under the impression of, right? And I thought it was important that we didn't lose sight of the small things, which is just the week to week, the process, the pregame shows, the postgame shows, the half times, right? The tailgates, all of that stuff. You can kind of get lost with the bigger picture. And I think that their lack of success this year, or maybe not lack of success, but maybe their marginal success this year has sort of brought us all back, and hopefully is bringing us back to having to appreciate things like last season more, right? So I overall, there's a great sense of disappointment on how this season has played out. They're 7-5. The team they're going to be playing on Sunday was 7-5 last year and then went on a run and won the Super Bowl. And I recognize that team has Tom Brady, and it's not exactly comparing apples to apples, but there were a lot of things in that game on Monday night that I think you walk away from and you say, I was really frustrating. A lot of folks sat outside, froze their ass off, had windburn, had their, I'm sure their lips are still chapped from Monday Night Football. So it's why you do it. It's why you tailgate. My dad had a literal Arctic fishing tent hut, a 6-man fishing tent hut that he was inside of with a short sleeve shirt on. Okay. Like that was a special tailgate, you know. And by the way, guys, like I would love to be out there at the tailgate enjoying football games, just like Bruce is back home and I'm back at the station. Sometimes I get to go to the games, but pre-COVID times, but there's something special about following your team, being there live for it. And to your point, Bruce, I remember when I had my season tickets, I don't remember the name of the guy that sat next to me. I'm not even sure if I ever actually knew his name, but you'd see him out at Dairy Queen. You'd see him here and you'd be like, what's going on, dude? See you in September, you know, like that. I don't even know if I ever knew his name. So it just goes to show you that sports really does kind of bring us all together. It's supposed to be that you know, that catalyst for good vibes and everything. And it's been a tough season to remember that, but I do think genuinely, especially after the year that was 2020,
And, not being at the first AFC divisional round game at the Ralph at the time, or at Highmark Stadium, whatever you wanted to call it, that sucked. And I think a lot of us, I know me, maybe most notably, was just like, okay, let's just get back there so we can host that game again. And we can really know what it feels like to have a night game in January for a trip to the AFC Championship game. And I think for everybody, this is still a team that can do that. And the one thing I did disagree with on Tyler is that Sunday's not a must win from the numbers perspective. If they don't win, they can still, they beat New England, and New England lose either the Indianapolis Colts next week or the Miami Dolphins in the final week. The Bills would then have the same record as the New England Patriots and have the tiebreaker and would ultimately win the division. So I think it's a must win from a couple of angles, Bruce. And I think the must win is simply for some feel good. I think this team could really benefit from beating Tom Brady on his home team, or on his home field. And I think it's really maybe less for what the actual victory would feel like, and more for these guys can turn the TV on again, because I'm sure a lot of players, coaches, and family alike have not been really looking forward to flipping that TV on come Monday morning.
I agree with you. The must win is much more psychological than it is numerical.
That's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Moving along.
Losers.
Winners, losers. Last, final section. Before we hit it, we have some comments real fast. JR says, Bruce, you need to update your camera. I'm sorry, guys. Another week down and another complete catastrophic failure on my part to update my camera drivers. I'm so sorry. M. O'Brien says, I fell in love with Bruce's cloud avatar. It's a darn good looking avatar. I got to be honest. It's much better looking than my face. I will tell you that. So be very, very glad. Though I haven't checked my follower count. I might need to show everybody my elbow. So I don't know. I got to check my follower count real fast on Twitter. 9982. 18 more followers, Nate. I'm going to have to show people my elbow. So that's going to be problematic. Buff on Wex says, that guy is probably listening. Is so sad Nate doesn't remember his name. He's like, I told him my name like a million times.
I thought he knew it.
Moving along, winners and losers from this week in the NFL. Nate, you want to go winners or losers first? What do you want to do?
Let's start losers. And I hate to be so recency biased, as I had some notes on who I wanted to pick as my loser. How can you not pick Chase Claypool and the Pittsburgh Steelers from that game last night, with an opportunity to win, to go to really make a resume worthy of getting to the playoffs, and they lose to a team that just lost to the Detroit Lions just a few days prior. So it's got to be Chase Claypool. It's got to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. But frankly, the biggest loser is got to be Big Ben. And for a lot of reasons other than the things that Big Ben is there, he sucks as a person, and I'm glad that that it's starting to show in his game, because he's been a great quarterback for a long time. But man, he has been a trash human. The one consistent thing may not be his play, but him being just a jerk has always been there. So biggest loser, Big Ben, Pittsburgh, Chase Claypool.
Biggest loser, Sean McDermott. Okay. I'm going to go biggest loser, Sean McDermott, because Sean McDermott, as Ty Dunne said, was completely unlike himself this week. Sean McDermott was as angry as I've ever seen him on the sideline, and unusually candid, emotional, and affected. I don't want to go as far as to use the word shook, because I think that would imply that I'm in his head somehow, that I can really tell what he feels. I can tell you how it looks like he feels, but it looks to me like Sean McDermott is starting to get frustrated with what's going on with the Buffalo Bills and what the difference is between what he feels like they should be and what they actually are. And I feel like this is the type of scenario that would previously lead to fairly rash moves from Sean McDermott. And we saw him bench both his returners. We saw him come out and not exactly defend Brian Daboll when asked. We saw him openly say something that he is not going to like hearing back on NFL Network in regards to Bill Belichick. He was a specifically different human being this week. And I think anytime you have a game that affects you in such a way that it causes you to actually step outside of what you actually are, I think that matters. And I'm not saying Sean McDermott's broken. It's all doom and gloom. The things are fine, and the fire and brimstone's coming from the ceiling, and the world's end. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying the heavens are opening up and swallowing us whole. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for this moment, Sean McDermott allowed himself to be something else. And I have a hard time believing that the thing he allowed himself to be is something he wants to be. So for me, Sean McDermott, biggest loser. Biggest winner, Nate. Biggest winner, who you got?
Biggest winner. Do you recall the book Art of War?
Sun Tzu. Yes, I'm familiar.
Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu is the biggest winner because back in the spotlight again. Did you see Peter King? Did you hear Peter King?
I did, yes.
The Art of War? Man, listen, sometimes we take our praise of Bill Belichick to just weird levels. Next thing you know, Peter King's going to start warming up a bath for Bill Belichick. Like, give me a break. The Art of War, because he ran the ball 40. So the biggest winner is the Art of War for being on this podcast and on national television for the last week.
As if somehow Sun Tzu needed the pub 6 centuries after he wrote it. Well, we got to make sure we circle back. It's been a bit for Sun Tzu. Let's make sure we get him some pub 6 centuries after he wrote the book.
It's too
for
good.
Me, my biggest winner this week is Justin Jefferson.
Oh, yeah.
I think that Justin Jefferson coming into the league, there was always going to be but he's got Adam Thielen. And I think that, he's got Adam Thielen, and everybody knows that Kirk Cousins is a reasonable quarterback, right?
Reasonable.
Reasonable. And everyone knows that Adam Thielen is a good receiver. But now you've taken away the alternative passing options for the Minnesota Vikings, and you've taken away the other excuse you could use to not put Justin Jefferson as a top 5 wide receiver in this league. And so now I think that if it were me and I was a Philadelphia Eagles fan for whatever reason, and I was a little bit struggling with the Eagles passed on Justin Jefferson for Jalen Reagor, I would actually feel a little bit better now, because now all of a sudden we're starting to have Justin Jefferson's better than CeeDee Lamb, right? Like, that's a conversation we're having as well. Justin Jefferson is better than CeeDee Lamb. Justin Jefferson is the best receiver from that class. So then the Eagles can go, well, yeah, we passed on him, but so did you conversation. And I think that is something that makes Justin Jefferson the biggest winner this week, because he's changing the narrative around not just himself, but the entire draft class that he was a part of in regards to wide receiver, and changed the dynamic of what was previously a fairly significant argument against Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles when it comes to drafting. So my biggest winner is Justin Jefferson. Elliot, thank you so much for telling everybody to smash the like button. I feel like we should come up with a specific verb that works for the like button that is food related. Chomp on that like button, smash burger that like button, grill that like button, something food related, right? Saute that like button, perhaps sous vide the like button. No, if you sous vide the like button, that means you just press and hold the button for like 6 hours.
I'm trying to think.
Oh, no one's gonna laugh at that. Why is no one laughing at that?
No, Bruce, come on.
Okay.
Come on. Hold on. Let's go with our man Richard. Richard, you know how to find me, bro. We'll talk Irish football anytime. Bruce and I could probably do a whole. No, I'm just kidding. We won't do a whole podcast about Notre Dame, but
Ooh, we could. I know enough about it. Whack that like button. Oh man, that's pretty good. I think that's it, Andy. Ladies and gentlemen, whack the like button, air fry the like button, as Elliot says. And thank you for being a part of this. We had a good time. We ran a little bit over, but we ran a little bit over because Tyler's awesome. That's the reason why ran a little bit over. So if we have to run over, it seems to me like that's a good reason why you would do it. So for Mr. Nate Geary, for myself, Mr. Bruce Nolan, thanks for stopping by, ladies and gentlemen. And we hope you didn't leave hungry.